Hello, welcome back to Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald,
On board.
and this is a first. We are doing our very first game review, and we're doing it in the Bald and Board style. So head to head, but coming together in the end. So I'm going to have my review sections, and Steve will have his. And overall, the average of hours will give us our review and rating for the game that we're doing. So today we are doing Obsession, including the expansions of Wessex, Upstairs, Downstairs, and the promotional tiles that we were really reviewing the game as a whole. And this is again by Kayenta Games. They did send us the expansions, which you mentioned in some previous videos. So thank you for doing that. And now it's time to hurt your feelings.
But if you're watching this on YouTube, which is where you're going to watch it, because that's where it is,
Yes.
please check out. We did a how-to video for the base version of the game.
Yes.
We did a playthrough of the base version and a playthrough adding all these expansions in. So we thoroughly played it, tested it, made sure we understood all the aspects after Nick cheated a few times. And then...
Wow. No, once it didn't make a difference. Found out
true.
today.
But we made sure we thoroughly went through all of the bits and pieces to give an honest review of what this game is about.
Yeah, definitely go watch those. The expansion video was very close.
Yes,
So
it was.
please check that out. So there are going to be 5 categories that we each have rated the game in, and this will probably be our consistent categories going forward. They're the things that mean the most to us, and seems like they mean the most to you as board gamers as well. But if you disagree, leave a comment below and tell us if you'd like something else, or if you think we're nitpicking, and we'll ignore that second comment. So the first category is the rule book. So this is grading the rule book on its look, its feel. Mainly, though, it's going to be how easy is it to read through and understand what's in there, and if we have to go back to look for things, how difficult is it to find those? I'm sure examples will come up as we talk about it. The next is going to be gameplay. So that is exactly as it sounds. How does the game play? Is it easy or difficult to understand? Does it flow well? Everything that goes into actually playing the game. Thirdly will be the components. So all the bits and bobs and pieces. How are those? Do they feel cheap? Are they expertly crafted? Whatever goes into that. I think that's pretty much it. Design is the next one, which is the design of the game, as in the layout, the artwork, all of that sort of stuff. And then lastly is the storage, which I don't think games are typically graded on, but it means a lot to me, to Steve as well, and to most gamers, to where there's a whole business of making storage for games. But if one comes expertly crafted already, that makes it even more valuable because it's less money that you end up having to spend on the back end to keep a game you love nice.
Yes.
And then that will all generate an overall rating from Bald and then from Board. And we will record down what our final rating is for each area as we talk about it. But let's start at the top of this with the rulebook.
But yeah, so for these ratings, we're going to go 1 through 5. 1's going to be
That's good to know.
horrifying. 5's going to be did great. And then we'll go in between. We'll give our number. We'll give our reasoning why.
Mm-hmm.
And as he said, we'll each have our own, and then a combined score in the middle.
Exactly. So you want to take it away with the rulebook?
Sure.
Your thoughts on the rulebook?
So for my review, obviously Nick is more of the critique, I think, in this category, probably. I definitely look at certain things, tie criteria and everything else, if it's easily identifiable. I also kind of compared this rule book to a lot of other games we've played.
Yes.
And how they've created their rule books. So this is one of the ones I gave a 5 to.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So reason for that is this specific rule book hits 2 main points that I love. One, it gives graphics in the beginning. So in terms of game setup, player board setup, all of that, it gives a nice graphic. It points arrows and says, number 1, do this, 2, and points all the way throughout on exactly how to set everything up. Where a lot of games will just give you a listing and you just got to follow it out. This actually tells you where everything goes. I know another one was Distilled that did something similar.
Yeah.
Which was very nice and very easy to understand. The second thing, which Nick and I run into all the time, is all of the special tiles or these strange circumstances. This game actually writes out. It has a full glossary that goes through all of the different things you can run into. It gives special ones for the expansions, as well as just some general information on all of the little cards. So I included all these little cards that come in the box as part of the rule book.
Yeah.
Since those matter as well. So those little player aids.
That's true. Those do. Yeah.
So how did you grade yours for rule book?
I'm a little bit harsher. And this is based on, again, other rule books that we have read through and how they've done, good and bad. But I gave the rule book a 3, which on the scale is average. I think the rule book did exactly what it should do. And it didn't do anything else that was spectacular. So examples of things that are above what you should do is something like Castles of Burgundy's newest rule book. They have everything nicely laid out, but then in like the inner spine, they have the quick reference for you throughout the pages, which is great. And so there's other ways you can do that. What also going to tick this down for me is it's really wordy. Like there's a lot of
That's
words.
true.
I'd rather see more precise words and diagrams. Dungeon card I just read through is actually a great example of that. Very little words, diagrams to the point, boom, boom, boom. You can bust through it. So the rulebook's not bad. It's great. It's doing exactly what it should be doing. But it's nothing spectacular for me.
All right.
So where are you at with gameplay?
Well, you start gameplay. Let's go back.
Oh, we're into some Snake. All right.
Let's keep it interesting.
Okay, gameplay I gave a 4 to. So definitely better, I think, than a lot of games. And that really comes into what I love, where you don't realize how fast the game is going. You know, it doesn't move fast, and that it's like you feel like you can't do much and it's over. And it's more so that by the time the game comes to an end, you're like, oh man, I really want to make sure I could do these other couple things. But it doesn't feel too quick to where it doesn't feel like you wouldn't have had a chance to do it. It all really comes down to what you're choosing to do, and everything flows back and forth super nicely. The round structure makes sense. And most importantly, it's fun. It's fun with the worker placement, tile drafting aspect of it, and then having your entry deck, you know, determining kind of what you can do. And there's so much randomness and variety here that every time I've played, it's been entirely different. There's still probably like 5 tiles at least that we haven't seen come out on the board.
Sure.
And we've, in total, between Assault, Steve and I, have played it 4 times, me 4, Steve 3. And so that means a lot to me. So it's by no means a perfect game, which is kind of what I probably reserve the 5s for. But yeah, it's above average. I like it a lot.
Yep.
That's including the expansions. They didn't take away. They added to this the experience, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and the expansions are great. The Wessex just added another house, which you have here.
And upstairs, downstairs, too.
And upstairs and downstairs added Howard. So it was nice to add these new abilities and things in the expansions instead of just adding, oh, here's some new cards. They took it a step above.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I give it a 4.5. So yes, I used.
I knew you were
going
to do halves points. I knew it.
I could have gone down to 0.1.
I was like, he's over there taking so long because he's literally trying to figure out if it should be 4 or 4.25.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 4.5.
The numbers were available.
That's fine.
So yeah, so I get 4.5. One thing to that same point is the expansion was done really well.
Yep.
It added new cards in there, new tiles, which is great, but also took it a step above and beyond. Added the new houses, added milestones, and a few other abilities that made it a little bit more interesting and challenging for us, especially with the new workers and the servants. A few other points I had. The flow went really well to Nick's point. You kind of get lost in it. You don't really know how long it's taking. The first 4 turns go pretty fast, and then it's that back and forth that we always have.
Yep.
Of
the last turn takes 3 years.
Yeah, who's going to do what? I also commented here that I love the endgame scoring setup.
Yep.
There's a lot of games that are good at this, but there's also some that are pretty bad, where you kind of just know halfway through who's going to win in some games.
Yeah.
And this one, you can have an idea, but you don't know what objective cards they have, what VP cards they have.
It's very reminiscent of Dwellings of Eldervale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do love that, where 25% of the score is right up front. You can kind of see it right off the bat. The rest is the cards in your hand, the objectives, and the VP cards.
It's a delicious point salad.
Yes. Another fun thing, which a lot of games don't do, is the ability to flip the card. Where when you get tiles, you play them and it flips to the other side, and it's a whole different effect.
Yeah.
It could be positive, it could be something just completely different, it could be a monument. So I do like that, where just because you were able to purchase a tile before the other person can purchase it doesn't mean it's useful. You actually have to purchase it, have the right criteria to use it, and then play it.
Yep.
So I do like that aspect on it. And then the other thing I said here is I love the refresh board. So you have the marketplace.
Yeah.
It's set up where it's not just a stagnant marketplace of whatever starts the game. I know there's probably a few games that are like that. This whatever gets dealt out is out.
Yep.
Each player has multiple opportunities to refresh that board and either make it better or worse.
Yeah.
So that's why 4.5.
4.5 for gameplay for Steve. All right. How are the components for you?
So components is where I start getting much harsher. I gave components. I was between 3.5 and a 4.
3.75.
We'll go 3.75. I'm just going to adjust my average at the end. So the best thing about the components, meeples, super easy to identify.
Yep.
So you have different colors, not only the different colors, but the different shapes.
Which
so
is
they look
important
like
for Steve.
So you can kind of look and be like, oh, the chef looks like a chef with a spatula in his
The
hand.
chef
except
looks
for
like
Nick.
a big baby with a rattle.
The valet has a little hat on, like a valet would.
Yeah.
So I do like that they took that extra step of effort. They didn't just order a bunch of meeples of different colors, but they actually designed them to what they represent in the game.
Agreed.
The one critique I have is on the board here, you have this rep counter, and you're going around, and every time you get through 5, it goes up to the next one. I think that could be easily a dial.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact of stacking a bunch of these, and then if it gets knocked over, you don't remember what number you're at. Plus, you have to go up and down, potentially. So I think a dial would be much simpler of a setup. You can still have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the actual rep counter, like whole number to whole number, should be a dial setup. The other critiques I have about components will come into the design phase, so we'll move on.
That's all you have?
Wait,
Okay.
save it for that.
So that was 3.75 for you?
Yes.
You and your damn decimals, I tell you. You're doing the math after this.
I am. That's fine.
All right, so for components, I am harsher as well. Again, with the caliber games can be at and everything. So I give this a 3, which again is average. The components were as they should be. They're nice punch outs. They're thick enough where they don't feel flimsy, but they're punch outs and they're cards. And the punch out coins, I love a metal coin. There's no metal coins online to get. You can buy some separate ones to get them. So again, just like the rule book, it's doing what it has to do to be able to be played well. The punch outs are sturdy. The cards are a good finish as well. So that's really all I have to say on that. So that's a 3 for me.
Valid. I forgot about the coins, and the coins are a little clunky looking too. They don't even look like have a dollar sign or a pound sign on. Those represent pounds, British pounds.
But the British pounds and pound sign, they just have.
They have an actual design. They have I think
space and stuff. Isn't it?
Yeah, but this
is a green space. Yeah, they both do. But to your point, you didn't realize that.
Yeah, it just wasn't well evident.
Yeah. All right.
So over to design.
So getting into the design. So again, this is more so that visual aspect, like what it looks like and everything. So for the design, I also gave this a 3, average. It's doing what it has to do. There's nothing really spectacular about the player boards, in my opinion. You have a round track, which is just that. It's just a round track with some really simple clip arty estate and stuff in the background. There's no spectacular artwork on here. Everything is in theme, which is great. I think the most spectacular thing is probably the design of the house crests. That's where the most creativity seems to have fallen into place. But the market board it's just a market board. It's like every other market board that's out there. Your player boards, it's nice to have the colors so you can stack down. And it comes with an additional piece you can put in the bottom, which doesn't really serve an additional purpose beyond telling you what each of those rows are, but each of the tiles says it on there already. So again, it's doing everything that it should be. It's clear, easy to read and to understand, but it doesn't really go above and beyond in any kind of way whatsoever. I almost rated it lower because I felt like the artwork and the look of it, art-wise, that's what I love, was a little underwhelming and seemed like it was made quick, but it's clean. It's not messy. It's easy to identify, so I didn't. That's why I kept it at 3.
All right. So this one actually had 4 different ratings. I was just going back and forth.
This is one that took you 3 years.
Yeah, this one took me a while.
Yeah,
so initially I had
3.25, 3.5, 3.75, 4. Yeah.
I had 3.5 to start, and then I went down all the way to 2.5. And when average, I got to 3. So I'm gonna say
I got to 3. He's like, I had it at a 0.5. Like, whoa.
So I think there's a few things that were done really well. Most stuff done average to Nick's point, and then some done less than average. So the one done really well. I love that on the character cards, they actually went through the time of the design of like writing a story.
That's true.
So they actually gave...
And the photos.
Yeah, they actually provided a photo of someone in the old British black and white style and dress, which is fun.
I'm pretty sure they're still in black and white in their photos. I don't think they have color over there yet.
They gave them a fun name. They gave a little bit about them for some of them as well. They added some fun effects. So I think the cards themselves done really well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I think was average or below average. To Nick's point, the round track, I like it. It was a round track. It did the job of a round track. So it was simple enough where you just kind of move it around in a counterclockwise fashion. But to your point, artwork was bland. Like, it wasn't above and beyond. It did its job.
Yeah.
The few complaints I had, one is on the board here, you have the 3 spots for available service, servants' quarters, and expended service. Especially with the addition of 4 new servants in the expansion, there's no space for that. It was made very small. It barely fit the initial set of servants, especially once you buy more from using the butler's room. So when you had expended servants, I had 8 at one point. They're all just kind of stacked there. So I like to have space where I can like stack each color separately and be able to see exactly what I have to plan my next move. That made it very difficult. The other complaint I had is I do love the fact that there's tiles because of the front and back, but it takes up so much space down vertically. I had 8 services at the end of the game. So if there's any way to like make them stack a little better vertically up top instead of going all the way down the table.
You could make them smaller. I mean, they don't need to be
exactly,
that
or
big.
make
There's
them
not
smaller.
that much information on there.
Like the colors themselves represent exactly what category they fit into. So you could easily like have the size of these, even chopping it down. They're not like there is no artwork or anything other than notifying the symbol in the upper corner.
Some of the monuments have artwork, but
the monument's the only one, yeah.
But even still,
but everything here, it's like you could easily just say Bowling Green, have the symbol. Like a lot of this can just be comprised into a much smaller image.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about this that could have been smaller. So like that the round track, there's no real reason why that couldn't have just been on the main board, potentially.
True, and just be like,
I mean,
a different color for the extended version and be like, okay, continue playing.
Well, I mean, it could just be literally a straight line, and extended just extends, or
that's what I mean, yeah.
Whatever it might be. Yeah, or you just have everything put down. There's different ways. Obviously, the Kayenta Games and team, they went through a lot of play testing to get this to where they thought it best and everything. So,
none
of this is supposed to be bashing them. It's just kind of like it's our preference. What it comes down to.
Yeah, so I ended up at a 3. I said it would have been a 2.5 if the cards weren't as good as they were. That was one thing that bounced it back up.
So you got a 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cards are great. The time to actually do photos of real people and those stories, it's a little thing that takes a lot of time.
Yes. So next up, the final category for this type of review. We might have other categories in future reviews. We'll see how this one goes. But our final category is storage. So how did everything fit in the boxes? Did the expansions merge into the box well? Things of that nature. This one, again, we've both have conversations off stream about a lot of our games where some are just a trash pile in the box.
It's true.
Some are really well built. And then others, you have to go to a third party and buy something to make it look really nice.
Yeah.
Like we had to do with Madara. So this one I gave a 5. I thought it was one of the better setups. The components are simplistic. A lot of them are squares or rectangles to begin with. But I do love that as the house, for all of the starting pieces, it's in a nice little box. And these little boxes just stack one on top of the other. You're not trying at the beginning of every game to find out what pieces are the starting pieces versus the other pieces. Yeah. All the tiles line up in one singular box, including all the add-on tiles from the expansions. Everything else just kind of stacks, as well as they give you the 2 bags, one for the tiles, one for the meeples, that can just lay on top at the end. So I do think it was very well developed. It is a simplistic game to begin with, so it shouldn't have been that difficult anyway. Yeah. But it did its job, I think, pretty well. And I think what set it above just giving it a 3 or 4 was the fact of the little family boxes.
Makes sense. Yeah. So it was
he
a 5
did not
for
give
you?
A 5 for sure.
That was a 5 for you?
Yes.
No, I give it a 4. Because they took the time to make those individual boxes, like you were saying, which are a great touch. I love when you can separate the starting components for each player. But beyond that, it's still just stuff thrown in a box. Just what they did is they made 2 smaller boxes inside the big box. Like the tiles are still just thrown into a smaller box. What would have put that above and beyond for me is if there was a way where they were able to separate the expansion and promo tiles from the base. That would help make startup or setup on for the base game much easier. For the cards and stuff as well, it's still just all the cards put together, thrown
That's
into
true.
a box with the little meeples kind of put in their nice tuck bags and shoved in to that box as well. And so they went above and beyond with some of the storage stuff, but some of the other ones, it's just a smaller version of what I think is typically below average. You know, if you want to keep your stuff, your game nice and neat, then you want to also keep it nice and organized as well. So the boxes they did put in the game though to organize stuff, including all the ones that are just smaller versions of being thrown together, are really nice. They're sturdy, they're stiff. Everything fits in them nicely. The tiles, they do fit in perfectly. I would just like to have seen something a bit more organized with those extra components that aren't the player pieces. So yeah, I gave it a 4.
Makes sense.
Okay,
So
my overall rating for Obsession on the bald side is 3.4. So of course that is the average of all of those categories. So that puts it slightly above average when it comes to board games for me. You can definitely see the time that went into figuring out how to make this work together, from all the worker placement stuff to using the gantry cards and the tiles to be able to create massive combos. It's another point on that as well, but I completely forgot it. But that's fine. Really, you see the time that went into creating this, and it's evident in the way that it plays and how fun it is every single time that we played it. So it definitely falls slightly above average for me.
Yeah. So my average as bald, no, I'm just kidding.
You're bored.
As bored. I'm just bald now. Is a 4.35. So it comes out not perfect, but a little bit more than average than Nick's.
Mm-hmm.
So on the very good side, just not the great perfect side. But same points. Plays well. I think this is a game we'll put on the table with a bunch of people multiple times. Easy to learn. All 3 times we played together, we played a little bit differently. Strategies change based on the tiles available, which is always fun. And I think overall, takes about an hour, so it's a nice quick game that you can kind of just
and that's playing the extended version. We played.
That's true. And we always take a little bit longer than normal anyway.
About 2 hours for us for the extended.
Today.
Yeah.
But like I think the one the other day was about an hour and a half, so I'd say the base version about an hour.
Yeah.
So just the normal.
All right. So 4.35 for you overall. All right. So real quick, 6.75 divided by 2. It's
3.37.
Take it.
3.375. Whatever.
That's fine. We'll take that. Do you want to use your math brain and average out our final score?
8, 12, 18,
Huh?
18, 18
Yeah.
7,
Well, we'll get this.
5,
Yeah.
18, 7, 5, 19. 3.81.
It's our final. All right. And we do have a guest behind the camera here, Jen, who we originally got the game for. Has her own words regarding Obsession.
On a scale of plank to forever home,
Uh-huh.
it was. Wait, are we doing
So 1 to 5.
10?
1 to 5.
3 average, and then
I did 1 to 10. I'd be going like
Oh,
6.3248.
It was a 3.5. Biggest note, more saucy cards.
yes, that was Jen's
I thought it was gonna have little chili pepper cards.
biggest disappointment was that there wasn't much sauce in the game when it came to its theme. Yeah. So she was looking for something a bit more saucy. So Kayenta Games, if you see this and if you are looking to make another expansion, another expansion, the sauce. You know, there's a few tiles in there where it is kind of saucy. There's one that we saw today that said 2 gentry may not be related. Must be a gentleman and a lady. So that was in there. There's another
Why
one.
not 2 gentlemen or 2 ladies? It's 21st century.
This one isn't 21st century. So
Yeah, that's Regency.
Yeah.
No, Victorian. Literally.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
so-
plenty of opportunities for fun expansions to
So
add.
yeah,
in.
add a saucy expansion in there, you know. All right. So Baldwin Board Games, we'll go over our final scores here. So for the rule book, our final collective score for Baldwin Board Games is a 4 between us. So I think definitely what we both said, it's doing what it should be doing, and there's areas where it definitely is slightly above, it is above other rule books there, being easily accessible to find, you know, those other items when we have to go back to it during game. Definitely helps speed it up.
Especially if the little player aids came in huge effect, because there was multiple times where I was sitting with different VP cards and looking like, oh, what does this do? Should I trade it in? And it gives you a nice little graphic for each of the things and explains what it is. It is a little wordy to your point, but at least it does the job, unlike other games which give you nothing and then you're just making house rules.
Exactly. Gameplay came out at 4.25. So I think we both agreed that gameplay is very fun. It goes very quick in a good way. And each time we've played, it's been very different. So it definitely puts it in that mark in those 4s.
Yeah.
Components came out at 3.37. So just under 4. So again, the components
That's
are
not just under 4. That's just above 3.
Sorry, just above 3 I meant. So they are average. They're doing what they have to do, but they are sturdy. And I think the thing that pushed it above that 3 mark was the cards.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that was my only point. Like I literally was going to put this way lower, but the cards are for me. I put in the design section.
Oh my bad, that's right.
But the components, my biggest hit was the dot. It could have been a dial for reputation.
That's right.
It was just very much a lot of pieces on this very little board. You had so many things on here that you could have added a dial, made it a little simpler, and the fact of how this is all built. But that's also mostly design.
Yeah, the what is it? There's another game there. Title Blades has a dial system on their player boards where, you know, if you have to take it up a certain amount before you get to the next number.
Yeah.
And so it could have just been that, and it would have been separated by 6 each time, and the 6 would have always been the next number.
I was thinking just like the dual dial, too. It's like where you have the whole number and then there's parts. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Design came out at 3. So the design of the game, that's the look of the game, the artwork, how the boards are laid out is just average for us. So for me, again, it did what it's supposed to do, and that's where it stopped. Steve had his points there of where it was below average for him because of certain things, and there were other items like this is where the cards came in that pushed it back up to average.
Yeah, this was the only one where I was like, this is below average, other than the fact that they took time to put into the cards, which is a vast majority of the game is those Gentry cards, and actually going through the images, making a fun little story. What they could have done, obviously we already complained the tiles were too big, but they only had a story about a few of these tiles on like 1 or 2 of them, based on what they were, especially for the expansion. But I thought something cool could have been done also to like build out a house almost, instead of just layering the tiles vertically down, where it's actually built out like Betrayal on Hill House. Yeah.
Oh.
I think it would have been interesting to be like, because the way I'm thinking of it, let's say objective card.
You're thinking of like a polyomino game of sorts.
No, let's just say like an objective card where it's like, oh, if you were building out the rooms as you're buying tiles, and it built out that you had 4 different connected here like this, then that would be potentially an objective where you give victory points at the end.
Yeah, but it's cool, but it wasn't. The estate isn't just the house. The estate's everything.
No, that
around
the bowling green is not in the house. The bowling green is on the estate.
That's what I'm saying, though. So maybe, but I think that would go against your other issue with how much space it was taking up in front of you.
True, but I would have rather had it taking up space doing that than just stacking all of them the way it was stacked.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because at least it would have been more interesting to like build something out.
Yeah.
Probably because I love dungeon crawls and map builders, but
they're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your guests have to find their way to the room.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So then storage came in at 4.5 for us. So just shy of perfect, really.
Yeah, that was probably our best category.
Then, we got 3 is average. Storage, 5 is perfect. And that in between is
very good.
Mm-hmm. So we got a 4.5. So again, it comes down, I think, to the boxes that were crafted to hold the components. That really helped put it above where you find other areas. I guess the only thing that really kept it from hitting that 5 mark was probably my point of the other 2 purple boxes are still just stuff thrown in a box and no organization beyond that. And that really kept it away from 5 for me.
Valid.
So overall, the Bald and Board Games rating for Obsession by Kayenta Games is 3.81
Out of 5.
out of 5. So just shy of a 4, but well over that 3 mark. It is definitely it's a great game, better than average, so better than most regular games you'll find out there. Easy to learn, easy to dive into, hard to master because there are so many different ways that you can.
Yeah. So if you're checking out this video, after the end here, please throw a comment in. If you've played Obsession, what's your rating? Either overall or some of the different categories and listings we had. Also, if you like these categories, let us know for future ratings. We'll bring it back.
Yep.
I know one I want to add into here for certain games will be story for campaign games. Will be a category to be like, how well is the story written? I know we've had issues with certain games where the story is very wordy or...
I mean, I would consider that design. That's
I
specifically
think for
part of
campaign games is a whole separate thing. Be like...
Okay. That makes sense.
I think it could be its own category.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
the design of the game based on, or the storybook. Like Madara, I think the design's awesome. The story, trash. Because it's so many pages of words.
So it's just, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, thanks for hopping into our first ever Bald and Board Games review.
Yes. And thank you to Jen for joining us as well over there behind the camera, watching from a not so far
Staring.
distance. But this is Bald and Board Games reviewing Obsession by Kayenta Games. I'm Bald.
I'm bored.
We'll see you next time.